Ruth, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain, can't complain. Just chilling. Just be kicking it, vibing. But it's an honor to even be in your proximity. With you here today and seeing your work behind you, and we go way back. But it's good to actually get to know you even more for this interview. For the people that don't know where we at, can you tell us where we at?
We are in North Miami in Miami Art Society's gallery. New location just opened up. We're right next to the Mocha Museum too, so basically building like a whole new community now.
Word. So, for the people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself and who is Ruth Tamfee?
So my real name is Ruth Burotte Tamfee, but Ruth Tamfee is my artist name and what I go by. It's kind of like a play on like my full name, but also a funny coincidence is that Tamfee is like Creole for I'm female. So happy accidents. I didn't really register it until like much later, but really matches well, at least with my Haitian heritage. But yeah, that's pretty much who I am.
So, where are you from and what was your upbringing like?
So originally, I was born in New York, in Queens, and then moved to Clayton County, Georgia, like 2 years later. And I was pretty much raised in Clayton County for about 15 years before leaving to South Florida. But my upbringing was pretty cool. I went to like regular elementary school. I grew up like around a lot of hip hop, especially in the place I grew up in, especially in Clayton County. There are a lot of rap artists came from there. Like I lived 20 minutes away from 2 Chainz, who lived in College Park. Waka Flocka went to the same high school as my brother. Ludacris visited my high school too. So a lot of rappers came and visited my county a lot. And
wow.
So yeah, it was just hip hop all the time, honestly. But when I was at home, I really got into like anime growing up, like watching stuff on Toonami, on Adult Swim on Saturday nights, and even watching like Saturday morning like stuff. So I really got into anime like at a very like early age, like watching like Pokemon and Inuyasha, some Studio Ghibli films that came on in like certain channels, and I just been in love with it ever since. And then when I got to high school, went to like fine arts, and when I moved here, continued my fine art journey. And yeah, I had a really, I went around, but nothing too crazy.
Speaking of anime, what was one of your favorite shows, like your go-to show?
My favorite go-to shows, I guess growing up, my go-to, especially when they had like special reruns, was like Fooly Cooly. I loved watching that every time it came on, and it always came on every so often on Toonami. But then I also loved Samurai Champloo. That's also like one of my favorite animes of all time, based on like the mixture of like samurais, action, and hip hop. Like, and Nujabes worked on it. At the time, I didn't really know who he was, but like, because I was just like a young kid, but finding out that much later was just like damn, that's crazy. But like just watching that and being exposed to that at like a young age, because I think I was like maybe 6 when I first watched it, that pretty much changed my mind chemistry ever since, and pretty much got me started down on the path. But I enjoy a lot of animes. Like there was a lot of wild shit I was watching growing up.
What gravitated to you? Like what made you officially like really watch? Because it's different between cartoons and anime. So what made you gravitate to anime versus cartoons?
So like cartoons were cool and shit, like because they were just like funny stuff I like watching, like especially like Cartoon Network stuff. But anime had like such a more like serious tone, and especially like the art style had me really gravitate towards it. Even though at the time it was like early 2000s anime, there was still like different variations and variety with like the art styles, how things are animated, choreography, art direction, especially like color scripts and everything. Like there was just so much more to that. And there was like a lot of variety in cartoons too, but I kind of like split between both of those as like yeah, I love watching cartoons because they were like they were great entertainment for me. But then I watch anime as like a really great medium for storytelling, and that's really got me engraved in it.
So before we tap in more into your career, I want to talk a little bit more. What attracted you to the arts as a young kid growing up?
So when I was a kid, I've always been drawing as long as I remember. Because I was exposed to anime, I would try to like, draw the characters that I seen on TV, and it turned into like me drawing a lot. Even then, like it transformed into like, I'm drawing so much in class, like instead of like doing classwork. Even though I always did my work, and I would try to draw as like any chance I got. And as I got older, I just wanted to like keep pursuing like getting better at drawing, because that was the main thing. I was like making my own comics. I was like making like little short stories. I was drawing characters. I tried to get, it just kind of like kept happening for me, and it was like such like a habit that I had to like pursue it.
Do you remember the first thing that you drew that that you were? I mean, if you did remember.
Yeah, I remember. The first thing I drew was Inuyasha. I remember.
And how was it?
Man, it
Looking
was
back.
bad. I was like 3.
Oh, word! You was
Yeah,
that young?
yeah. I was drawing since I was mad young, bro.
Damn.
I was 3 years old drawing like Inuyasha because he came on the TV, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to get this. Like we had like spare pencils, and my mom gave me like color pencils too because I was going to like daycare and all that stuff. But yeah, I remember that Inuyasha drawing. Like he had a big ass head, and like I give myself credit for getting the colors right. But
I'm surprised you remember.
yeah, I remember because I remember that drawing. I was like, because I felt so proud. I was like, yeah, this was it.
Would you say your mom kind of influenced you to pick up into the arts? Because you mentioned your mom just now about it.
I kind of want to say that I won't say it's like an influence, but it was more like encouragement at least. Because she thought like, oh, let me nurture this talent because she likes to draw a lot. So let's see where it goes. So, she was giving me like color pencils. Also like my big sister at the time, she was going like to high school and going to college too. So I would like call her up all the time and talk to her on the phone about things I learned today and things I drew. And she was like, oh, what you drew today? And I was like, oh, I drew this at school. And it was like something I seen on TV, and it was mostly anime. And also she was also the one that kind of first saw that I was really into like Japanese culture. So she also had like a friend that she had in college where like whenever she came and visit, she's like, oh yeah, he went to Japan and everything. And he would like talk to me about like all this stuff and all the anime stuff he's seen, and try to teach me a little Japanese at the time. But yeah, just like they were just kind of like, encouraging me to like, oh yeah, let's see how far you can go with this. Like, you're good at drawing, and you're doing good at school. So, and all the things I mostly wanted was just like paper and pencils, and I didn't ask for a lot. Mostly other than toys, it was just mostly like art supplies. So I wasn't that complicated.
Speaking of more influence, what or who has been your biggest inspiration coming into the art world?
Biggest inspiration for the art world, I would have to say it was most likely my art teachers. They were very open with me, like all my art teachers going up, at least the three specifically. One when I was like in middle school, I had like an art teacher. She was like an older white woman, but she saw how much I love drawing, and whenever I'm in the class, I'm like the only person doing her assignments. So she was like really fucking with me at that point. So she pretty much influenced me to like, first like experiment and whatnot. Like she even convinced me to be like president of art club for like 1 year.
Word.
And by doing that, she's also the one that showed me like the process of like how to do like large scale work. Like she was the first person that showed me like, yeah, you just get a big ass piece of paper and get a projector and now you can like upscale your work. And after that, that blew my mind. And then when I got into like high school, because between I went to high school in Georgia and I was in a fine arts school, my teacher there, and he was exposing me to like more of the digital stuff, the digital side of art. At that time, I learned about digital art, and I decided to I convinced my mom to buy me like my first drawing tablet. And he noticed that I was really into digital art, so he got me into like learning Photoshop and like most of the Adobe stuff, at least like between Illustrator and Photoshop.
And this was high school?
Yeah, this was like the first 2 years of high school. And then when I came over to South Florida in 2015, I had my teacher, Mr. Joe, in Sunrise and Dillard.
Oh, you went to Dillard?
Yeah, I went to Dillard.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Broward baby, for sure.
Broward. He was also like really encouraging with my stuff too. Like he knew I really like to draw anime, but he also convinced me to like try out mediums at least. Like, oh, you like drawing anime, but can you draw anime in other mediums? Can you like, yeah, you're doing stuff with digital art, which is great. He, encouraged me for digital art, but he also introduced me like to printmaking and whatnot. Just to like see how much I can like expand with like different mediums. So throughout like my schooling years, at least I had like 3 good art teachers that I remembered that they just, they knew that that I had to cultivate my craft. And yeah, and even then like in middle school, like there was one time we got like these magazines that the whole school like got apparently, and it was like nationwide, but they came in like once a month. And it was like a kids magazines for students, but students are able to like submit drawings and whatnot to the magazine. And I remember in the 6th grade, this was shortly after the Haitian earthquake that happened. I submitted like some work to the magazine to like, spread the word on like how to like, donate or like, spread the word of like, knowing that Haiti is going through this right now. And then about a month later, they printed that. They gave me like a whole page, and I didn't expect that. I thought I was gonna get like a corner, but they gave me like a whole page of it, and they also sent me $30. So that's when I was like, oh yeah, I can really do a lot with this art shit. Like that was like, it was those moments of growing up where it can pretty much solidify that, yeah, I want to be an artist.
Yeah, but would you say honestly, those little moments in your life, like how should I say this? Would you say like those little moments in your life trickle down to the artists that you hear now? Because your teachers, you think about you at a younger age, those little moments you don't think of, as a artist that where we at right now, you don't think those little moments are anything, but as you get older and talk about it, it's like
Yeah.
those little moments is like what helped you to what it is today.
Yeah, those like at the time it's like, oh yeah, I did this, and like this my teacher helped me out with that. Those, and there were times where I had like other teachers that didn't really like me at all and didn't like that I was like drawing anime as like an art form. But the ones that did show support and that did encourage me, those helped build me out to like actually pursue and also like look at other anime artists like and do like research about them. Like they made me be introspective on like, okay, why do I like anime, and like why, like who are some anime artists that I want to like not replicate the work, but like I want to give off the same quality as that, and because of that, that made me like realize like, yeah, this is like a serious art form I can like actually pursue. And sure, like nowadays it's like, because it's so popular now, people are like looking at it as a bit of a taboo. And even growing up, I've heard a lot of stories where like kids are not accepted into like different arts
Art
high schools.
schools,
Yeah, because
yeah.
they put anime in portfolio, which is like, that's some hater shit.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was a problem for a little minute. I heard they're more accepting now, but I remember I talked to this woman. She saw me drawing like at this function one day, and she came up to me and she's like, "Oh, your work is so nice. Like, kind of reminds me how my daughter draws anime too." I was like, "Oh yeah, word." And she was like, "Yeah, she tried to put a portfolio for Dash." like, yeah, I'm like dropping the name, like it was Dash.
I was
And
gonna mention it, but
yeah, she didn't get accepted because
Wow.
they didn't accept anime in the portfolio, and I was like, that's crazy. And like,
Mhm.
there's still lots of places that don't really accept it, like, but it kind of mellowed out
Is
over
that
the
like
years.
a Western thing to not get accepted, or is it just
Yeah, it's a Western thing
yeah,
because they think like, oh, too many kids are doing it. They're just doing it because it's probably just popular, and it's
right,
like
right.
they look down on it
Mhm.
as like a childish medium. But there's a reason why it influences like a lot of kids and like why the stories resonate. Like, I'm sure like still kids like enjoy a lot of cartoons. Like, yeah, we have a whole generation that follows SpongeBob to a T.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
there's a reason for that. Like, we all grew up on it, and it's a big influence, and it's something that, you know, at least like more artistic historians should like take a look at.
Right, right. Um, Trickling down to your work, I want to kind of stay on the beginning side. Um, I get that you was drawing at 3 years old, but now I want to talk about. Do you remember one of your first art pieces that you officially work on, whether it's canvas or whether it's 3D animation? Like, do you remember the first time you started to make your first art pieces?
Yeah, I kind of do. There was the times where when I was learning about different mediums, um, I remember I really wanted to get into like animation.
Hmm.
And, at the time I was going to Broward College and I was doing like, their fine arts program. And I was only there for the 1 year because, after that I was like, it's either you go to graphic design or you go to like, drawing. But at the time I was like, I should really learn how to animate. I felt like that was like an important skill set. So I ended up doing like dual enrollment in Miami-Dade. So like during the day I go to Broward just for like the regular classes.
Hmm.
And then I take a bus to go all the way to Miami-Dade just to take their animation courses. And I remember for like the first semester of working and learning how to, animate and learning like the software, at the end of like the semester, we all like ended up watching like each of the short films that we made. And then everyone was so impressed because they were like, the quality of someone who's doing it as like a beginner animator was crazy, from like animating how to make a ball bounce to like, oh, you made an actual like 1 minute short film where there's like character acting and like some like action and whatnot. And there's like a story being told. So, and even though I look back on it and it's like still like amateurish, I was really impressed that, I had like a standing ovation in a class of like 50 students. I was like, okay, that's pretty good. I think I did something.
Right.
But but then, after that, I was like, well, I need to get the BFA. At the time they only had like the AA and ASs.
Hmm.
So, I transferred to New World, after that semester to,
Oh, and around Wolfson
yeah,
campus.
just to like, finish out my degree. Like I really wanted a BFA because you can go so much further with it. And, I majored in art and tech because I felt like that was the best middle ground for me as like being like an artist where I dabbled in different technologies, different softwares, but I'm still producing like high quality work that also like deal with like different concepts.
Hmm.
Um, so just like me being interested, like thanks to me being interested in like digital art when like a young age, I wanted to explore like the other different factions of like media art in general, like videos and animations and installation art now.
Right, right. So, when was that moment when you said you wanted to take art serious and make it as a passion versus being a hobby?
I feel like it was middle school when I wanted to take art seriously because
Hmm.
then, you know, you graduate 8th grade and then it's like, okay, you go to like high school or, you do stuff after that. But like, I was really looking into like, I was really looking into my future when I was really young. I was like, yeah, there's a path I really want to go down and I need to do everything I can to like pursue it. And like when I was looking like what high schools to go to, because usually you get automatically transferred to like the nearest high school.
Right.
But I decided to apply for a fine arts school, um, in Georgia too. That was not far. It was a little bit farther from my house, but there was a way to get there, and it was a fine arts school. So it was my first time auditioning for anything, honestly, and I had to like. That was also the first time I actually had to gather a portfolio. So I had to gather like sketches, and I had to learn what observation work was. I was like, what is that? I'm like, for eighth graders, I was like, this is kind of crazy, but I wanted to gather. I had to gather as much as possible to show that I had drawing skill, but I also had like prowess to learn. Um, and then when I finally got like the letter that I got accepted to the fine arts high school, because at the time it was like, it was hyped up in my area. Like, yeah, we got like jazz band and everything, and like all the artists do like art shows at the school. And I was like, yeah, this is like way different from I've ever thought I would experience. But when I first got that letter, I was like, I'm on like this is like the first step to like actually taking the work seriously. And, from then on, it was pretty much the end of the story. Like,
Right.
of course it's still going on, but
Right.
yeah, I knew where I was heading down as soon as I got that acceptance letter.
So, what do you think were the steps you took to sharpen your skills to be the artist you are today?
Some steps I took was as like advice, like try to learn as much as you can, but also like if there's stuff you're interested in, learn everything about it as much as you can also. Like for me, having like my first tablet, like I didn't know that beforehand, like when I would like look at anime art, like I didn't know things were like made digitally. Like I used to look at time lapses online of like anime artists that record it and put it out. And I'm like thinking, they do all this with a mouse? Like that's crazy. And then I found that they had a tablet. I was like, oh, that's wild.
Yeah, because you're able to flow.
Yeah.
With drawing. Because I use Illustrator, and I remember when I went to school for commercial arts, and I'm telling my teacher like, bruh, like I had a MacBook, or I still do, like a MacBook. I'm like, I can't use the pen tool, like. He's like, bro, you have to have a mouse.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar to what you went through with that.
Yeah, it's like crazy. Like the tools that you need, like
Right.
were just there. Like you just thought like, okay, they're just doing this because they have like technology and stuff. But it's like, it's stuff that you can grasp too. Like so many artists now like are picking up digital art throughout the years. But at the time when I was like doing it, it was like a whole new world for me. Like it was still kind of new. Like, at least for me, like I didn't know like people
Especially
were making
that
art.
time.
Yeah, it was just people making art digitally. Like you had a tablet and they just go straight onto the computer, and I was like, okay. And then I got the tablet, but then I realized, oh, you need the software for it too. Luckily there were free software. I'm able to plug it in and like able to draw. Like one of the first drawing programs I ever used, other than Photoshop, was GIMP, and it was a weird software, but. You're able to draw.
I think I remember again.
Yeah, because beforehand I would just draw, and we had like a fax machine and like a printer, and I would just like scan it and then put it on there, and then I would just try to fill it all with like a bucket tool on Photoshop.
Word.
But then once I got the tablet, I was like, well, I just cut out like a good 40 minutes of me doing this.
And you gotta imagine like the early 2000s and the 90s, they had to go to like a store like Best Buy or something like that to really like. I don't know if you remember, but they had like to get Photoshop or these little programs, you had to get the little box with the CD and all that.
You had to go
stuff.
buy it physically and then put it in your computer.
And then download it.
The only reason we had Photoshop on my computer was like we had a cousin visit, and he's like, oh, I got some work to do. I never knew what he did. All I know is that he had Photoshop and he knew how to do it. And then after that, he taught me how to bootleg it, and I was like,
oh yeah,
I was like, damn.
Yeah, when I had my it's crazy you say that. I'm thinking about it now. When I had like an HP, and my uncle-in-law, he's he a tech guy, and he was like, yo, you don't have to buy that stuff. We used like FrostWire. It was like LimeWire, but it was FrostWire at the time. And I used to just, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those programs, and just put the code in and
Yeah, I'm like, where they get these codes from? Who's pirating this shit? But it ended up working for me. I mean, I feel bad now, but everyone. I'm like, Photoshop used to be like $60, bro, for like a one-time thing, and then nobody wanted to pay that $60.
Exactly.
That's the craziest part. But yeah, like back then it was insane. But looking back, it's like, hey, it's the necessary steps everyone had to go through. If you really want to be a digital artist, that was what you had to do. Like learning learning what actually goes into like art making, especially digital art and animation. Like you have the software. I thought it's not like a make cartoon button. Like no, it's a meticulous like craft.
Right. So when approaching a new piece you're about to work on, can you describe how you go about with your workflow or creative process before you paint or, working on your 3D art or digital art?
So yeah, I either do like two routes of it doing it. One route is like I either come up with like a concept first, and then I usually like build out the concept. It could just be like an idea I'm exploring, like especially when I want to like illustrate like the character around it. But then other times, and this is stuff I do most of the time, where it's like I mostly like draw out like concepts first. Like I'm drawing mostly just random stuff just to see like how it develops. Because I believe like working through, sometimes you don't have any idea, but just like doing like light warm ups and like just creating just to create like helps you develop. You start making things as things go on. So I go on Pinterest and I look at photos. I go through like my own collection of photos because I like to go out and I'm just like snapping stuff of like sometimes people. I see like the fashion they're wearing, and I'm really into sneakers, so I'm always looking like what they got right there. And then whenever I'm out and about, I'm like, this person would exist in this type of setting. Like, I try to like develop characters and create characters like that. And once I start like, doing that, I start thinking of like different concepts of like, oh, what does this represent? Because everything I put into my piece, everything's intentional. From like picking like the shoes, like what the shoe means, like oh this like yeah I like streetwear and I like graphic tees, but there's a reason I put this graphic tee there. Maybe if it's the vibe of the character, it's like telling you like the personality of the character without actually hearing it. So just like working and creating stuff first actually helps things a lot more. But the other route of like, oh, I have an idea, usually that's like the hard thing I go through, but I'm starting to do that more. Like when I made like a giant tablet, one of my pieces was making a scale to scale recreation of like a drawing tablet to represent like the first person view of someone who's engaging in digital art. Right. And working on layers and working on software. I had that idea first because I was like, man, I want to show people the gap between like I want to have develop it, like I want to close the gap on like physical and digital art. Like I want to show people like, hey, this ain't shits and giggles. Like I'm actually trying to do the work. And making that sculpture was one of the making that was one of the like the thought process for it. So yeah.
But speaking about your characters, like what made you create these characters? Because like I feel like every character has its own theme, so like what made you like when you creating your work or when you start making your work or a certain type of style, what made you create these characters?
Well, me making my characters, the first type of thing I wanted to do was like add more representation to like the medium of anime. Because, growing up, as much as I loved it, there weren't like a lot of like black characters. Like the ones you would see mostly was just stuff off like Bleach. And I was like, oh, we got black characters in Bleach. So that's how I know it's possible. You know what I mean? And when I watched Samurai Champloo, I'm like thinking like all of them are black, to be honest. Like most of them just look light skinned. That's what I came to that's when my thought process was like, oh, that show is black. They're just light skinned.
Right.
That's what I'm looking at. But yeah, I wanted to have like more representation of like, good black characters, especially like black and female, different skin tones from like light to dark skin. Because usually people don't really vibe with like, I won't say vibe with it, but sometimes you just be watching stuff and it's like, oh, that don't kind of look right. But, trying to like, show different ways of like, hey, I know how to make black characters in this style. And then it turns into like, oh, I'm developing a character that would exist in this type of like world, like whether it's like an old Western rugged world, or like something that represents like the modern age.
Right.
Things that people want to see now, honestly. Um, and that's pretty much like the goal of me doing it. Like, trying to have people see themselves in my artwork. Like, I want people to look at the characters and just be like, I just by looking at her, I feel like I relate to her. Like, I just like it's like trying to set up the blueprint.
Right.
That's what I want to try to do. But with my characters, a lot of them represent different things in my life too. Like people I've come across and people I've met, personalities that I enjoy, and some were just like, you crazy, but you funny. And just trying to have someone like see him as like, hey, that reminds me of like my sister, or like that reminds me of the girl down the street, or someone I went to school with. Just like representing everyday life and trying to hold a mirror to everyone.
All right. So, how would you really describe your style within your work?
I would describe it as, I hear urban a lot, but sometimes it's like, rugged, a little edgy, um, not like hardcore, but it's very direct and in your face. But it's also other times I hear, it's very nostalgic too. And it just feels, because it reminds them of like old school anime, which I actually really like to hear, because old school anime had like just like a different type of like feel to it, rather than the anime of today. Like everything feels like super polished, which is not a bad thing. I understand like technology got better and everything, is higher quality, which is great. But back then there was like this grittiness to it. Like you can't. It's like watching like old horror movies like Texas Chainsaw Man. You're not gonna get that grit no more.
Right.
And yeah, that's pretty much how I like to think of it.
I think you answered this already, but I'm gonna ask you this again, or ask it anyway. What would you say is the message you try to interpret in your work?
I say the message. I have a kind of depends, because sometimes my work gives off different like messages or like different points. But I guess like the main thing is just to be open and empathetic to the work. Just be open minded with what you're looking at, regardless of like whatever anyone says. Um, and I take my artwork seriously, so I also would like people to like also take it seriously as someone who like developed the art and like took time to create it. And which is also the reason why I'm like dabbling into so many different like mediums and factions, like from like sculptures to 3D modeling to like videos, like even new media in general. Like there's finding different avenues of how to like show the work and pretty much show my world and show my characters, knowing that they can exist off these different planes.
All right. In your eyes, what would you say is your best body of work that you're proud of? I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot, but
Best body of work. I guess I'm gonna just say this because I thought like from start to finish this was like dope, but I'm gonna have to put it through like my BFA thesis, when I was graduating college. Like I had this, I developed this whole thing where it's like, I conducted this story about a girl who lives on a planet at the gas station. She works at the gas station, and the people who come in mostly just fuel. They fill up fuel for their like ships and whatnot. It was really inspired by Cowboy Bebop a little bit. But then one day when she was working, three dudes who were not happy about the government because the fuel that they were working on, the fuel that she supplied at the gas station, they were trying to change the rules, and a lot of people's jobs were like getting let go. So as a point of protest, they robbed that gas station, and she ended up getting, hurt, like, having like a head trauma from them trying to rob it. And, as she like comes to and she wakes up and she gets healed and gets no benefits but has to go back to work, she starts developing like different hallucinations, and she starts seeing like different realities of different places where she wishes she was at, but she doesn't know if these places are real or they're just like different hallucinations. And now this is something she has to like live with. It doesn't heal over time. Now it's just like a new ailment, like someone who is living with like a long-term like disease or living with long-term like illnesses. Like that's their reality, you know. And oh my God, was this the pandemic? Yeah, this is crazy that that happened during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
But now we just heard about long COVID, so I never put that two together. But now I'm realizing that. But that was like a really interesting body of work because I went from, you know, designing the character herself. You know, her name was Ibo, and it was short for ibuprofen as like a painkiller.
Wow.
And then I developed like the three dudes who, you know, ended up robbing that station. One was like an electrician, one was a plumber, and one dude was like another guy who worked at like a factory. And they were all masked up and mad as hell that, you know, the government is trying to like basically let them go, and they were just really frustrated and just wanted to protest. But you know, it was a good idea, but it ended up bad.
Why do you
know,
say that?
because you know someone ended up getting hurt with someone who's just trying to like, hey bro, I'm just the middleman, I just work here, like I don't really care about this too, I'm just trying to get my stuff. But you know, then it causes problems for others. So there's like a whole bunch of like different elements and messages between like, you know, capitalism and consumerism. And then from making like 4 different paintings of, you know, the things that she hallucinates, to doing projection mappings to actually show like, hey, these portals opening up. And I had to 3D model all of it, and I had to animate all of it. And I did this all in a matter of almost a year. So it was basically 2 semesters. Like, so it was a couple of months. And even having the trouble of like telling my teachers like, yeah, I'm planning this thing. And they're like, this seems like a lot, you should dumb it down. And then the other half of the faculty was like, nah, let her cook. We want to see this come to light. And they started arguing with each other. And I was like in there like, don't worry about it. I know what the plan is. So I was doing like so much, like, and then I had JP help me like do like a vinyl installation that was really cool. Like it was one of the.
But that just shows you my bad to cut you off, but that just shows you the determination you had. You was willing to put in the work where you could have easily agree with your teacher. Oh, you know, you need to dim it down and all that. But no, he was like, nah, I see a whole vision. I don't care how much work. And that kind of honestly probably prepared you to sharpen your skills even more around that time.
Right? Like, I just wanted them, like, after telling them all this, and, you know, it's not like, oh, I'm being stubborn and stuff. I was just like, no, guys, this all means different things. And it's like, to me, it wasn't that much. Like, they were just put off with the amount of elements I had, from like paintings to the vinyl installation to projection mapping to little 3D printed models I had of just different things, to like having a TV set up, and then having like some stuff on the ground so it can actually feel like something you're stepping into at least. Like they were just taken aback of like how much I was putting in. But then, you know, when I heard like, just when I thought like, oh man, they're not vibing with it, just when I heard like one teacher go like, well, actually, like they had to interject like, you know, this I think is like, you know, especially it was my professor who's been, you know, watching me like produce like different projects and knowing how much stuff I put in it. She was fending me for me, like, you know, she's done like all this stuff in like as different projects. So this feels like an amalgamation of everything she's learned. And then, yeah, 2 other teachers, like, you know, I didn't have as much classes with, they're like, I actually want to know like how this is going to come out, because she seemed like she had everything planned out, you know. So just like, you know, having that support, I was just like, especially it was like 3 of them, that's all I needed. As long as I had someone that knew like I had a vision, like that was like one of my most proudest bodies of work. And I had like so much help on that too.
Especially in the art world where you don't really, I mean, every once in a while you definitely have the support, but it seems like it's more, you got to support yourself than somebody just supporting you. And the fact that you only had, I mean, you had 3 people, and that's a blessing, you know?
Right? Like it helps so much more when you actually have like people have your back and they're like, oh, you want to see this vision come to life. And I was like, say less. That's all I need. Some people don't even got that support. And, you know, it's either you got to try to persevere, you know, like you got to prove that like, hey, I want to make this work. I had planned everything out. I want to make it a reality, you know?
Right.
And that was just like, that made me like really grateful especially it's crazy that I did that all for a BFA too. That was all for a BFA thesis show.
Right.
That didn't even have like an opening. We just had like people invited, like, hey, come see this. But I had like I received so much good feedback from like a lot of, not only from my peers, but like a lot of people who came and visited, because, you know, as soon as they turned the corner, they were like, oh shit, this is a lot. So, you know, I wanted to show everyone like, yeah, this body of work was important to me. Hopefully I bring it back someday.
But even talking about the thesis, it's like, that just shows you the storytelling element, you know, of like you creating these stories and these characters towards your art. Like when I'm hearing that, I'm also thinking like, dang, you're definitely in the right path into getting like, you know, your own anime, like, you know, the storytelling, and just, you know, because you know, doing those things falls back into the storytelling element, into the arts, you know. So
yeah, because I know like everyone's go-to, especially for like illustrators and like sequential artists, and even like people who like to draw anime, like, you know, you gotta make the manga, like you want to hear the manga. And I'm like, you know, I get that. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, but I want to make like, you know, a lot of the artists that I look up to all started out as fine artists. Like they all like developed works and got their paintings, and like they all like dabbled in different concepts. Like one of my favorite anime artists and actually creators of all time is Satoshi Kon, who, you know, at first was like, you know, an artist, and he, you know, he dabbled in manga, he wrote stories, and, you know, he worked with the dude who made Akira. And, you know, later in his life became like a movie director, and, you know, he started like making movies, like full feature films. And he had like very outlandish concepts, all dealing with like things like dreams, and hallucinations, but also like mental health and things that happen in society. And then you have like, you know, like the guys who made Inception, they were like really inspired by his work in his movies.
Word. So Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, Nolan was. Yeah. You watch Inception and then you go watch like Paprika, and you're just like, man.
That makes sense though. That makes sense.
Like so many like directors are inspired by anime, and then you just find out years later, like, oh, like sometimes they say it, but you can just, that's how you know, like this medium can be something like bigger, even more. Yeah. And, you know, that's what I'm trying to do. Like,
not trying, you are doing it.
I am doing it. Like just knowing and seeing his work, like before he started dabbling into movies, just seeing like his fine art paintings and the stuff he made, I was like, yeah, I gotta lock in some more.
Talking a little bit more, I want to talk a little bit more about a little bit of, you know, the pros in your career. Can you share a memorable or rewarding moment in your career?
Yes. It was back in 2018 was like a really good year for me, not gonna lie. Because I remember, so rewind a little bit to like the fall of 2017, right? And we was just talking about this earlier, but it was that Art Basel where I skipped class, not skipped class entirely, but I left class midway just to run down the street to go see Virgil's like t-shirt workshop. And even though I wasn't able to like to get in the workshop to do it, I saw Virgil like out the window, and I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. And damn, this looks like a really fun workshop. And then I was like looking at the time, I was like, I gotta get back to class because we had like a test. So I ran all the way.
December, that's like finals and stuff like that. So
yeah, so I had to run back down the street back to class, because luckily it was like, I wasn't that far, it was 2 blocks. But then I was like, oh yeah, this Art Basel was crazy. Like Verse was doing stuff. Like, and that's kind of when I was dabbling more into like streetwear, because, you know, I had gotten a job, so I had money for shoes, you know. So I was like starting to slowly collect my sneakers, especially visiting like Shoe Gallery, which is also like down the street. That was my go-to. Yeah, it was right around the corner from New World. So I'd be going there a lot, just be like, what's the drop today? Like whenever I'm online, I'm like,
and they had some hidden gems in there for sure.
They really did. And whenever they had shit drop, you know, lines out the ass, bro. Like I'm like, I can't even line up because I gotta go to a class, and I'm seeing like, what's the drop? But luckily I was able to connect with them, and, they love my drawing, so I was able to like do a lot of stuff and get into community with Shoe Gallery. But that's like another thing. But basically, that was that time where I started like my first intro of like making characters that also like rock a lot of streetwear and different concepts of like fashion and basically dabbling in it. And I told myself like, okay, 6 months, I'm gonna be drawing like nonstop characters with different fashions, like different types of streetwear, just to practice my character design skills even more. And I was like, to make it realistic. And then all of a sudden, fast forward to about May, I get like a DM from someone from Adidas, and they're like, "Hey, we found your Instagram. You post like this amazing art with all these character designs. They're all rocking different clothes and streetwear, you know." And at the time, I was really into Adidas because of tech wear stuff. And they were like, "Oh, we want to invite you out. We want to fly you out to like Germany and London for like a campaign that has to do with the shoe that was coming out called the Pod Systems." And at first, I was like, "I don't know if this is real or not. Whether they trying to trick me." And I look at the Instagram account. I'm like, "She seems legit. Let me go on." And then I found her name on LinkedIn. I was like, "Okay, she real."
Yeah, you gotta do it. Yeah, because sometimes it be little bots and stuff. So yeah, I feel
Exactly. And so I said yes. I was like, I'll take the dates. I'll take the time off. Like, I had no summer school, thankfully. I didn't have any summer classes. So I told her, yeah, I want to do it. And then she was like, "Oh, great, I'll get back to you." And I'm like thinking, she's not going to get back to me.
right.
And then she actually got back to me. And then she was like, "Yeah, we're booking your flights right now." And then also, funny enough, at the same time, I was working at Art Center, which is Ulights now. I was their gallery assistant. And one of the directors who was working there, she has a friend that works at Adidas. She told me one time. And I asked her, like, "Are they actually doing this? Like, I don't know if you can hit that friend up." And her friend got back to him, like, her friend got back to her, and she said, like, "Yeah, this is actually a campaign. We're reaching out to artists." And it was so funny that she's a part of it too, because he didn't know who was a part of it or not, but it confirmed for me. So
right.
I was like, okay, I'm actually like gonna be flying out with Adidas. And it was about a week. I was in Germany for 2 days and London for about another 2 days. But it was just me going there, and we were kind of like learning about like the shoemaking process. We went to like the factory. We saw like the archives. I met like really cool people there. I met like Joshua, who was like the dude who went crazy for he made like the Doodle Bobs Jordans. Yeah. He was there. I was like, "Hey, that guy got really crazy on Instagram for black and white making them Doodle Bobs."
Right.
And then I met like really cool other creatives too. I met like this guy named Kubo, who runs like a streetwear store in Japan, and it's like the same streetwear store where like all the rappers go to, and like called Great. It was such a mesmerizing. It was a fever dream, to be honest. Like, I was in another country, just there for like sneakers, and we were all like pretty much there to design our own rendition of the Pod Systems, but they would represent the city. So some of them had creators from like, they brought 2 for one city, but I was the only one from Miami. Oh, wow. So I represented Miami by making like my own Pod Systems. And they had like an open workshop. We learned how to make things, like actually like put a shoe together. I was like, this is the best day ever. And then I met Pharrell. Like,
how was that? I met him a couple of times, but how was your experience with that? Because Pharrell is definitely tapped in with that world.
It was hilarious, because I was at the workshop. Like, they had a workshop in London, and I was there sketching, right? And I was like, because we had to go like make like a shoe and stuff, and we could like give it to the people to like put some stuff together. Right. So I was sketching like post ideas, like what I wanted, and like one of the Adidas people came up to me, and she's like, "What are you working on?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just trying to build out like what I want to make with my sneaker, because it's like a Frankenstein type thing I want to do." And I was explaining it to her, and she was like, "You want to tell it to a friend we got here? Like, we brought this guy. You could tell her all about it." I was like, "Yeah, sure." I thought it was just like an interview, like a camera. Nah, it was. I'm seeing like all these lights and all these other cameras come in, and I turn around. I'm like, "Oh shit, that's Pharrell," and he's coming in my direction. I was like, "That better not be the friend she was telling me to talk about." And he was like, "I heard you was making something." And I was like, "Oh shit, it's Pharrell." So I'm talking to him. I'm like yapping for a full minute, and then he goes, "Were you born in April?" And I was like, "How'd you fucking know?" And he's like, "Cause you an Aries, and I felt that from you." And I was like,
that sounds like for
"Damn,
real.
this nigga guessed my birthday," and he was right. And it was a very short conversation because they had Pharrell moving like everywhere, but he blessed me and all that stuff, and it was like one of the best 2 minutes of my life. Like, I was like, holy shit, I just met Pharrell. We took a picture. That's crazy.
Right.
And then later that night we went to the opening campaign party, and they brought out the Migos, and so I saw the Migos for the first time, and Pharrell also showed up, and they were performing Stir Fry, and I was like, damn, this is the life.
Right. And even probably them booking your ticket.
I know, I didn't have to pay for nothing.
Yeah, I hit different.
Like, the funniest part too was that, like, because between Germany and London, I went to Germany, was there for 2 days at the factory, at the Adidas campus, and then I had to fly back out to America.
Oh, in Portland?
Not like Portland. Like, they had the Adidas campus in Germany.
In Germany, the original. Yeah,
they had it in like Nuremberg, I think that was the city. And then I had to fly back out to like America. I'd go back home because they're like, okay, in the next couple of days we're gonna fly out to London. We already booked your stuff. I was like, okay. And what's funny is they said like, oh, we realized, we could have just like flown you from here to there. You didn't have to fly you back out, but do you want us to change your flight to stay in Germany longer? And I should have said yes, but I said no because I didn't pack enough clothes. So I was like, I had nowhere to do like laundry. I didn't have that big of a bag. I was like, I gotta go back home to pack another fit. And luckily they gave me clothes too, but I was like, I didn't bring a lot. So I went back home, came back to London, and my flight was delayed by like a couple of hours. So I got there the day of the event. I was supposed to be there the night before, but I got there the day of the event. So literally it was just get in the car, get in the wheel, go straight to like the workshop. And then it was just a full day of just like designing Pharrell party. And then that was also the same night I saw Playboi Carti. No, actually the next day I saw Playboi Carti and Skepta at like another club because I got invited out. They're like, hey, they're performing there. I was like, okay. And I walked around London, and then I went back home the next day, and I was like, yeah, that was crazy. So I met so many cool people. I haven't kept up with all of them. Some I kept in touch with. A few kind of like, we left their separate ways, but it was still like one of the proudest moments. And all that because I was drawing characters in streetwear and sneakers. So that was the proudest moments of my life. And I still had like other ones, but that was like peak because I actually had to go somewhere.
Right. Damn. Shit, that was that's a crazy story. Like,
it was.
That's, and especially just being a Black artist, and going overseas and just seeing another perspective of the world is just always crazy because it's like there's not too many of us that do that.
No, for real, especially in Germany. Like Germany is kind of maybe the town I was in. The city I was at was pretty diverse, but then I was also looking at the sneakers everyone was wearing. I was like, damn, everybody is wearing Sambas. Like that's the thing. Here in America, everyone's wearing Jordans, but over there they're all wearing Sambas, and I was like, okay. Cultural differences. I like that. But it was my first time traveling like to Europe ever. Like that was the longest flight I took. At least at that time, it was the longest flight ever.
So, kind of going back into your, I guess, you as an artist and you dealing with, I guess you could say your process. How do you deal with your creative blocks?
Oh man, I'm gonna be honest. When I ever have creative blocks, it's like they say like just working through something or just making something can help, and sometimes it does. Not every time, but sometimes it can help just by like making something non-serious, like a sketch or like a full drawing that absolutely means nothing, but it comes out cool. That happens, but then other times it's like when I really just can't get into it. You gotta go to sleep. Like, I think it means like you gotta take a break. Sometimes it just means like, watch some movies, take some time to like, enjoy your life. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I love drawing, you still gotta leave the house. You still got stuff to do. Just take the time to like find inspo like outside, hang out with friends, see what's going on in this city, especially when in Miami, there's stuff going on all the time. And I'm stuck in the house like a lot just by like trying to create and whatnot. But whenever I feel like that big block is just like hard to move, just taking like a good amount of time. Sometimes it can last like a day, maybe a week. The farthest for me was about like a month where I didn't like draw shit. Like I didn't make anything. I was just laying down. I was just watching movies. I was just going out, trying new foods and stuff. Going to different things. Like, cause I feel like taking care of yourself is like pretty important.
For sure,
Go to the
especially as a
doctor.
creative.
Yeah, sexy creatives like, and it's really bad. It's like even in like for anime and manga artists, like they die, bro. Like they die from overworking, and it's like you hear a death of like a creator you like really much, and you're just like, no, what happened? And it's
Especially
like,
in Japan.
especially in Japan, they're like, oh, they got sick or they had like a long-term illness they was dealing with, and some of them like never finished their work. Some still alive, but their works are unfinished because they're just dealing with like too many things. And I'm like, yo, y'all gotta get up and get going. Like a lot of them know how to like make it work. They find like a balance, but finding that balance is like super important. So just never feel guilty about the art block, but I'm still dealing with that. Like I just be like, damn, I'm a bum today. Like I can't make nothing. I'm not locked in enough.
That's how I was the other day. I ended up finishing all the things I needed to complete, like work and stuff like that, as far as like, tasks for like projects and stuff like that. I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I feel like what do I do? Like, like
Damn, I have this free time now.
yeah, and then you just like you feel bad because it's like why am I not working? But you completed the stuff you needed to do.
Yeah, you're just like, well, off to the next thing. I got to
Yeah,
start cooking some more.
yeah,
And it's really hard when you got a job too.
yeah,
Like,
for sure. How do you balance your commercial work versus your personal work?
so I try to find the balance, mostly try to feel like which of the works are like, you get much like satisfaction from, especially from commercial work. Like with personal work, I try to like plan long term for it because I know like things get in the way of life. So I try not to feel bad whenever I'm like not working on my personal work. Um, but when it comes to commercial stuff, it's just kind of hard sometimes because it's not like you don't care about the work. Like there are lots of commercial work where I'm just like, yeah, I'm in it. This is amazing. I'm all for it. But sometimes it gets too much. Like it gets too in the way. Like it's like, oh, I want to do my own stuff. Like, especially take it from me. Like my full-time job is being a designer for an agency, and that's all commercial work at the end of the day. And I'm just spending so many hours of like designing, brainstorming, working on decks, and it takes a lot of like brain power. Like it sucks most of the creativity during the day. So whenever it's like slow days or I'm just like, oh yeah, we just need you to like fix these stuff, like, for this billboard or for this ad, and it's already like done and created. I just need to make edits. I'm like, whew, I can actually draw today later after I get off of work. So it's really hard to find the balance. But it depends on what you do. But for me, like if I try to take the opportunity where it's like if all of my creative juices aren't like drained for the day, I'm gonna put that into the personal work. But if it's like stuff I've been working creative for the job, and it takes like about a good week to do, you know, that that means I have to like take a little break after that, or even just use like about 15 minutes to develop the personal work just by doing little stuff like like write down a concept or doing like a sketch or like research something new, and then it's back to the grind. So I'm still dealing with it. It's a hard thing.
Right. What role do you believe you play in this world as an artist?
I think my role is hard to say because I'm still like going through it, but I want to say that I'm someone. I won't say like I want people to like look up to me for inspiration and stuff, but I do kind of want to be a blueprint for something. Like I don't know what it is yet, but just trying to be, at least not trying to be like the first, but just doing something where someone can go and see like, oh yeah, this is the type of artwork that influences change on someone, whether it's like influencing someone's like art style or influencing like the way they take art or how they approach art. It's like trying to be the blueprint for something, but I'm trying also not to put so much pressure on myself at the same time. So right now my role is just to like just keep being the artist that is at home and trying to like develop work as much as possible, but also building like the representation for more Black characters and like positive outlooks of life.
Right. So tapping into the digital art world, I want to get your opinion on, how you feel about this. But how do you see the art world changing into the digital age, like the AIs and all these different mediums that's coming out now versus how it was back then?
See, the thing was for like whenever there's like a change for like digital art or there's like something new happening, I get hyped up for 2 seconds. Like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, this is gonna help so much artists out. Like this is gonna be the best thing ever. And then too many people ruin it. Like I remember when the NFT stuff was dropping,
Oh
and
my
the
God.
whole stuff with Beeple saying, "I sold my whole digital art collection for millions of dollars," and I'm like thinking, yes, people are gonna gallerists and people in the art scene are gonna start paying attention more to digital art. They're probably gonna start collecting digital art, but also take it seriously as a medium. Maybe they might figure out like new ways of how we can like develop art like this. Of course, there's still gonna be painters and traditional artists, but maybe it's gonna merge more, and we'll see more artists like expand their toolkit. But no, it was just monkeys and bananas, and those supreme motherfuckers. Like that monkey shit was just crazy with the NFTs.
Yeah.
I was like, and it was, and I don't even hate NFTs. I hate bad NFT art. Like the majority of them were just trash. Like I was in the bubble for like a good 6 months of it, and I had like a little bit of success. I had like a really good moment where this NFT group show where it was like Super Cheap Gallery had like a collaboration with a company in Japan, and they wanted to showcase like a good stack of like really good NFT art. And the way to showcase that was like showing them in Shibuya, like on like the TVs where people are crossing the street and they look up and they see it. So I had one of my animations featured on the TV screen in Shibuya, and I saw they gave me all the footage of like all the other TVs where it just popped up and it was just my work, like over like 7-Elevens and stuff. And I was like, see this is where I can see the medium like getting great. And then but then a lot of stuff happens, and the bubble burst, and there's like a little falling out in some places, but there's still like a lot of NFT stuff going strong. So they're still dealing with growing pains, which I think is good. But when everyone was into it, that was just
It was like a
insane.
big inflation of
Yeah,
people.
and now with the AI stuff, I'm like, you know what? I heard something interesting from one of the dudes who's like works in AI, but he's also like a creative himself. He's like he believes that AI is something strictly for something to use for the artist. Like if you're an artist, this you can use AI for you because you can, dumb down your process by cutting some time off. Like, oh, you're trying to develop some concepts, or like you're trying to like plan a new piece, and maybe you're not getting like the visual right, like the idea, but things you're drawing out are not coming out, and you're looking at references, and the references are not the things you're looking at, and it's you're using AI to collage like a whole bunch of things together, and it's like, okay, I understand that. Like, it's great for concepting, like building up backgrounds, or like if you're trying to do like setting. I can see all that working out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into everyone making like funny shit. And again, I didn't hate it either. Like, I thought it was funny that people were making like cartoon edits where everyone has like grills and shit.
Right.
Like, I was like, I mean, it would have been cool if someone 3D modeled that themselves, but I'm pretty sure the works were already existing, and AI is just like taking stuff, and which is something I found out that I didn't like at all. Like, just I thought it was just like taking images from the internet, from random things, and then you put them together and there you go. And sure, it's low quality, but it's enough to like, as long as it's low quality, it's enough for you to like go about it. But now people are just making high resolution stuff, and it's like it's getting weird, and it's so hard to be optimistic right now, especially in. And what's funny between like both NFTs and like AI stuff, like the technology for both of them, it's so wasteful. Like takes up so much energy. Like the way it takes like building an AI image off like Google is like enough to power like a whole state for 3 hours. It's like I don't. It's like
it's just like, I guess you putting it like that, it's just like, you know, from a photography perspective, or just a lot of things in the creative world, that how everything was processed in the 90s and the, you know, earlier years, where it was like they had to use chemicals, all these chemicals and energy, to where now you can't even use that. You
yeah,
know, so it reminds me of that. It reminds me what went through back in the day towards what AI is, but not AI. You know, a lot of people don't understand, like, this technology stuff, it produces energy. They have to have rooms and rooms. All these companies have to have rooms and rooms full of systems that
yeah,
controls the
built up like
energy.
servers and
Yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah.
takes up warehouses, and then they're like kicking people off and taking off all like these areas, and next thing you know, it's like, oh, you got like 3 Amazons like out because someone wants to mint an NFT. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like at this point, I don't really want it. I don't even need it, and it's insane. It's like it's so like it's very nihilistic, honestly, especially where it's using like black bodies to power. Like it's taking like indigenous lands and all that. It's like people mining up places. I'm
It's
like,
deeper than rap. I already
it's
know.
deeper than that, and it's like,
if people
wow.
only knew. If only
Yeah,
people
I'm like
knew.
at this point, man, I don't even want it. Like at least with my
Yeah.
tablet, I just have it right here, and I can make it myself. It's already here. I'll just do it. And the only bright side to it is that if someone has a stupid idea, they don't have to like bother an artist to make that shit. You can make that dumb shit yourself because you want it so bad. So don't bother me about it.
Just
That's
dealing with bullshit clients.
yeah, like clients that be wanting the dumbest shit, and they're like, "Oh, I'll just use AI to do it." Because at first it was like Fiverr, like, "Oh, I could pay someone $5." I'm like, "Then do it. Then don't bother me with that. I don't want to make stuff for your toothbrush, like for your toothpaste brand, and it turns out it's not even good ingredients. Like, get away from me with that. Like,
right.
So that's the only upside. But other than that, it's like, yeah, I don't.
It's 50-50 with you, pretty much.
It's 50-50. I'm really hoping there's like a turn with the technology where it's like, maybe there's something positive, especially environmentally wise, like a positive outcome. But until then, it's like, man, I'm trying to reduce my footprint.
Right. So concluding the interview, or before I conclude the interview, rather, do you have any upcoming shows coming up that you want to talk about before we finish?
Yes. So I'm actually excited because the next show that I'll be a part of is the show I'm also curating. And it's a show called Run Them Hands. And it's basically,
Wow.
it's a really interesting show that I'm putting on because not only it has me, but it also has like other artists that also are like anime artists that dabble into the same art style and aesthetics. And also like other artists that also deal with like very graphic heavy aesthetics as well. It's all about pretty much the process of working within different mediums and how artists and creators are like sometimes you got to fight with your work to like produce something. It's all about like the uphill battle and what it takes to be an artist, especially in this day and age where like someone might not take your work seriously. And that's pretty much what I want to have this show for. Like I have like so many dope like artists that are like making anime work, and it's like really great mediums. Like I have a group of artists, these two artists, they're a set of twins, and they both like are anime artists, but they make it in ceramics. Like one of them makes figures in ceramics, one of them makes like more like pots in traditional ceramics, but they have like so much beautiful engravings that deal with that same aesthetic, and it's like gorgeous. I have another artist who, she's mostly in like the convention circuit where she's like selling her work at like these conventions, making fan art. But she's like a very talented like artist. Like her stuff is just very painterly, and she's now dabbling back into like traditional work. So now she wants to produce and show out like her traditional paintings and whatnot in the show. And that's pretty much what I'm trying to do, because it's a interesting topic right now where, within anime in the United States, people go to conventions and, there's artist alleys and artists are selling like goods and stuff, but it's all like fan arts and things of prints and like acrylic keychains of like popular characters.
Right.
So no one's like selling like original stuff. Not while in Japan have like their own like conventions, of course, and they have a thing called Komaket where it's like, yeah, it's an anime convention, but all the artists are making original works. They're making like their own comics. They're putting out samples.
Well, yeah, I like that. It
Yeah,
reminds me of how like Andy Warhol used to uh, run his own magazine, interview magazine,
yeah,
like stuff like that. Yeah.
exactly. Like they're doing stuff over there. They're making their own stuff. They're producing their own goods, and then they have like such a big like outcome. They have like so much crowds of people going in because they're genuinely curious. Like, okay, who's gonna be the next big anime artist? Like, I want to tap in first. Like that's like the mindset.
Right.
Well, for here in America, it's like all fan art and goods. And I'm not gonna lie, it's not like anyone's fault that it's set up this way. It's kind of like how it's been because for a long time, if you love anime and you want to get like good anime merch, the official stuff is usually garbage. It's not good, and the only people who are making like so much good quality stuff are like creators here. Like they're making like so much amazing like stuff on their own. Like yeah, it's still like stuff of like popular works, but they're making it so much better than like things a company could make, honestly. And then for the consumer, it's like this is the only time they can only do it. Like they shell out so much money because hey, they love this stuff, they love the lifestyle, and all the cool stuff is in Japan and overseas, and it's like so much more expensive to get that shit.
Right.
So it's no one's fault, honestly. It's just how it is. Like if we had maybe had more access, maybe things could be even out, and there could be a change for Artist Alley where it's like, okay, they can still have some fan art, but like it's more like, oh, you're a popular artist, an anime artist in like the scene. Like I want to support your work. I want to get your stuff. And mostly it's like, okay, you're this person's favorite artist because you made this amazing thing, this amazing One Piece T-shirt that they really enjoy. Again, it's not a bad thing. I fuck with it. I think it's great because they make so much stuff better than companies. But at a certain point, like these are still artists at the end of the day, and I think there should be a space where everyone should show off like everything they're able to do. Right. So that's pretty much why I'm doing this show, because I have so much great artists, and I don't think they should start making fan art like all the time. Like they could still dabble into it, like Daniel Arsham. Daniel Arsham makes fan art. Not gonna lie, that man was in Pokemon. Like you can't, that giant Mewtwo sculpture he be doing, that's fan art. You can't lie to me on that. So. Right. But he still makes a lot of like great original works and original paintings. But I want to build like that for here as like a community for artists. Right. So hopefully when people come see like, oh yeah, these are dope anime artists, like or great graphic artists and painters. But we're all doing our own thing. But yeah, that's what I'm really excited for. Sure. It's my first curated show, and I hope everyone comes on August 10th to see it. But it's gonna be good. After that, I don't know anything else. I don't. Sure. I'm just working.
All right. I do want to ask you for your future, what piece would you love to create that you haven't done so far?
A piece that I want to create so bad. I want to make a life-size sculpture of one of my characters, bro. Like, I want that shit to stand up right next to me. I mean, I'm like 5'3", so I want it a little bit bigger probably, but at least like someone of my height. Like, I want someone to walk up and be like, holy shit, they're in real life, like 3D. Like that's why I tapped into 3D, so I can like put my characters in different mediums and different like styles. But to have it here in real life, because I've been doing 3D printing for a minute, but just having something like large and upscale, yeah, that would be freaking dope. But it's a little expensive because, of course, it's hard to. It's either I gotta sculpt it by hand, but I'm not that great at sculpting, so I'm like thinking like, okay, 3D printing. But then you got to do it in pieces, or you got to work with a fabrication studio. So I'm trying to figure it out. Hopefully, some grant money come through so I can make it live. Right. But that's that'd be awesome.
All right, last question. What piece of advice would you give an aspiring artist trying to get in the game?
I guess the advice I would give is like, if you really want to be an artist, you better be you better be with that shit. You better be prepared to put like your all into it. Like from just like not only just like learning, go through the basics of what every artist go through, like learning how to draw, or even if you're a photographer, learning the basics of like a camera. Just learn the basics of what you want to do first, and you know gradually like build up your skill set, build up your tools, and also like don't be afraid to like experiment. Like there right now, a lot of artists, we're all dabbling in different things. There are so many people who have a background in painting. They don't paint no more. They're just sculpting right now, and they just use their painterly skills to like on their new stuff. And then there are people who are sculptor artists that don't even sculpt no more. Now they're
Right.
like photographers, but then they print their photos and they start building shit with it, and it's like amazing. It's crazy. So just learn so much and experiment, and don't feel bad if things like don't come out the way you think they would. Like it's all a process at the end of the day, and you're pretty much the only person holding you back is yourself. So if something's not done, then it's like, damn, looks like you gotta lock in some more. But also things take time. It's okay. Like sure, this thing might take a long time, may take a decade, but it's gonna be yours at the end of it. So yeah, just lock in.
Right. So how can the people get a hold of you or contact you?
You can always find me through Instagram at Ruth Tamfee, RUTAMFI, and I have a TikTok account now, but I'm not gonna talk about that. The TikTok is a whole nother beast, bro. It's something unexpected.
Whole another world.
It's another thing. You'll find it in my bio, just honest, but mostly Instagram is where I'm at.
Well, Ruth, it's an honor again. Thank you for sitting down with me and being in your space and just talking about you. I learned a lot about you just now. Yeah, it's a blessing to be here with you today doing this interview for Beyond the Scenes, for sure.
No, thank you. Like we haven't done this shit since like the Filthy shoot. Like that was crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And that shoot was just crazy. 'Cause that was the first time I met you, and I was like, Jerry, the homie JC, he put me on to you, and I was like, oh snap! And ever since then, we just been cool. And also, I want to thank you for helping me get the tobacco-free Florida campaign to help consult with that project. So
no, you helped me out because you made me look so good.
Yeah.
At the end of it, and they still like we won awards off that shit, bro.
For sure.
Like we just can't pull it out fully because the governor's a bit weight.
Yeah.
But he hate black people.
Yeah.
The governor don't like diversity. So, but like everyone realized how good that campaign was and how like you did an amazing job. Everyone was talking, and there's so many of the homies that are in the video that is so funny.
Sure. For sure. I had to put the homies on.
That's a Miami staple now.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was incredible. We got to do that shit again. I mean, if I'm still able. No, let me cut that out.
Yeah, I'll cut it out. But all right. Thank you again, and we out.
Thank you.